Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of day you're watching my video here. Sid from Sid Sticks, and my interviews. I'm excited today. I got another interview for you, another 218er, a little farther south from my hometown of Roseville, down 89 and a crossover on over to Bemidji, where this gentleman started his youth hockey playing in Bemidji there. Also moving up the ranks, playing for his coach was Brian Grand and Lyman Brink at the high school level. Not only was he good with the hockey stick, by the way, folks, he was pretty good on the links with the old golf stick, winning a state title there for the Bemidji Lumberjacks, an individual title as well, team and I think individual. From there, he moved on to play at the University of Minnesota for the legendary Doug Woog, may he rest in peace. Also played along the likes of players like Brian Bond and Ryan Kraft. There was numerous ones that were excellent hockey players in their own rights. During that time, he also had an opportunity to play in the World Juniors, one of only a few elite players that can do that, and very unique sense that he was able to play there. His son also played there 25 years later. We'll talk about that. But one other unique thing we'll discuss on that team, he also had to happen to have a goaltender who was a teammate of his from his hometown in Bemidji. And I don't think that's been done very often, if at all will ever be done again, where there's two of the same play from the same town playing on the World Juniors for the United States team. After college hockey, he moved on to start a business working with former golfer as well and former NHLer Dave Snuggerud to start Breakaway Academy. We'll talk about that. And as well as doing some youth coaching over in Minnetonka. I think he coached over the AA Pee Wee team. And we'll just kind of move into this, and hopefully I didn't miss anything, but I'm very, very excited to talk hockey with this 218er. I'm joined by Andy Brink. Andy, thanks for coming on and chat with me a little bit today. I hope I didn't miss anything. I know I try to get a lot of stuff, but I'm sure I missed something about your wide background.
Well, you forgot to mention my great looks. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. You got much better hair than me too, of course. So
yeah. I admire the picture behind you, the old memorial rink in Roseville. There was a lot of great memories in that rink, and some of them positive and some of them not so positive.
Well, I could say the same about some of the rinks I'm going to pull up for you as well. Speaking of memories, so we'll start with that. Talking about memories playing, I want to talk about where it all started, and I'm going to pull up one particular arena. This one right here, Nymar. I know I played a game or a few were there, and wasn't that the one, Andy? Didn't they have wasn't there a bump in the ice that there wasn't there, if I remember right, at Nymar?
No, that was Nilsson Reese. That was the city rink that was connected to the curling club in Bemidji. The city rink had the bump.
That's right.
And for many years, you played a hockey game there at practice, you just skated over the bump. It was just part of the rink. But the rink you showed there, Nymar Arena, I've probably skated 100,000 hours at that rink. And it was funny, as I got older and I could finally drive. Gary Sargent, who obviously was a great player, played in the NHL from Bemidji. His uncles lived right across the street from the rink, and they were the rink managers, Frank and Jerry Sargent. And I used to drive over there, and the rink would be closed, and they'd give me the key to the rink, and I'd go unlock it, and I could go skate by myself. So, those things probably don't happen as much anymore like they used to. But Nymar Arena was just it's where I grew up, essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty cool here. And you talk about the northern areas and like Roseville, Warwick, Bemidji, things like that. Being able to go to the rink and you got the key, and that's how you get better. It's what you do away from the coaches and what people see you would stuff on your own.
I just see all the great players that have come from northern Minnesota. If there's probably one thing they had, it was access to the hockey rink.
Very true, very true. So can you talk about some of the youth coaches or some of the influence you had when you were playing youth hockey there at Bemidji before you moved on to high school? There's any particular coaches? I mean, you mentioned the sergeants being able to, give you the keys to the rink and such, but were there certain people that really were influential for you when you were a youth?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Bemidji was such a great place to grow up just because you were playing every sport. You're playing baseball and you're playing golf in the summer, and fall sports. If you weren't playing football, you were hunting and fishing and doing other activities. And then, of course, playing hockey all winter. And everyone that we were surrounded by was just into sports, into athletics. And, most of the people that were probably great influences on me were school teachers that also were involved in the sports. Coaching golf. Larry Perkins was my high school golf coach and my 7th grade math teacher. And Jim Mergens also coached me in high school golf, and he was a school teacher as well. And then, of course, Brian Grand from Roseau, who was, a tremendous player. And I got to see that when I was a kid growing up. We would, even when I was on the high school team, skating with Brian, he was the best player on the ice. And so when I was a, punk 16, 17-year-old, you wanted to, he would scrimmage with us a little bit because he still was so good. And so Brian was a huge influence. And then of course, my dad was always really into sports. He grew up in Baudette, grew up playing baseball and hockey and fishing a lot on Lake of the Woods. And so my dad just always really loved sports and encouraged us to play and wanted us to give our best effort. And so in Bemidji, there was no shortage of really positive adult influences.
Great. And I will throw up a picture. I don't have a recent one when he was coaching, but I got a young Brian Grand right there, I believe, that from his BSU days. So
yeah, and he has his number retired at Bemidji State. I think only Brian and Joel Otto are maybe the only two that have their numbers retired. And if somebody told me once that he has, if not the highest, one of the highest points per game in NCAA history. So
wow,
Brian was, a tremendous coach and definitely a huge influence on me. And whenever he talked hockey with me, of course, I was all ears. Unfortunately, I couldn't do everything that he told me to do.
Well, you mentioned some other thing we were talking about being youth there, doing different sports and things as such. I must, and I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this up, but there's a picture that was from your team days with the Lumberjacks, and there's a few other hockey players in there, but winning a AA title with the Sticks with the golf club. So can you talk about this picture here? And I must throw up a young look at that young Andy there in high school, and you talk about the clubs and that. Look at that young.
Yeah, that's my senior year. And that year I won the state individual class AA championship, which nobody from Bemidji had ever won that before. And I guess why that matters is because, of course, we had a former PGA Tour player, Billy Iselson, was from Bemidji and was just clearly the best player in the state when he came up. And it's pretty amazing he didn't win the state tournament. And then in my era, a little bit older than me, was a kid by the name of Russ Simonson, who was he was amazing. Like he was probably the most talented golfer I've ever seen, and he dominated state high school golf. It's just that the state tournament, he just couldn't seem to win the state tournament, even though he was the best player. And then it was all athletes that went out for the golf team in Bemidji. Golf in Bemidji was really a huge deal, and so I started on the varsity team in 7th grade, and we made it to the state tournament for 6 straight years. And we won the state tournament my 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade years. And then my senior year, we lost by 2 shots. And then, of course, my senior year, I won the state individual award, which, was, well, like I said, I mean, if Billy Iselson didn't win it and Russ Simonson didn't win it, it felt kind of amazing that I won it.
It's pretty amazing. And then I think this black and white one here, you said this is a Birchmont, I believe this one here.
Yeah, the Birchmont, obviously, it's a huge summer tournament, Bemidji. I only played in it a few times, and part of the reason I only played in it a few times was that's when USA Hockey was starting in the summertime. And so for a couple of weeks in the summer, I'd go out to Colorado Springs to make the select 16 and 17-year-old team. And so I only competed in it, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 times.
Okay, look pretty casual right there with you, just kind of hanging out like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
I probably missed a short putt, and I have a little bit of a scowl on my face.
You do have a little bit of a scowl. Yeah. I do want you to point. I got to back up again, just because it's an amazing stat you just told me. How many times in a row did you win the state tournament in golf? How many did you say? Was it 4 times in a row?
Yeah, our team won it 4 straight years. It was amazing. My 8th through 11th grade years as we won it, and back in those days there was only 2 classes. There was Class A and Class AA, and we were AA with all the big schools, and so we would go down to the Twin Cities, and of course you're playing Edina and Wayzata and all of these other huge school districts. And not only would we win, we would dominate. We really had, it's a pretty interesting era in Bemidji golf. We really had a juggernaut going, a dynasty, and we wouldn't just win tournaments. We'd win tournaments by 30, 40 shots. But we had guys like Russ Simonson that would shoot in the high 60s. And then we'd have Rick Rand would shoot right around 70. And then someone like Troy Halupsik would shoot low 70s. And we just had so many good players. Many times our low 3 scores would be the 3 lowest scores in the tournament. But it was how, golf in Bemidji was kind of probably like what hockey was in Roseau and Warroad for many years. the best athletes played golf, and you didn't miss practice ever. You never missed a meet. You golfed all summer. You worked really hard on your game. And we just had a couple of gentlemen who led the golf program, Larry Perkins and then Jim Mergens. And it didn't matter what the weather was. If it was 35 degrees and raining, you were outside chipping and putting and working on your game. And you didn't get to say, oh, the weather is poor, I'm not going out today. They made you practice. And it was really fun. We pretty much dominated there for quite a long stretch.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. I didn't looking back. I probably back in the day I remember, but I'm getting older. My memory escapes me, or I did stop a puck or two with my head. It's pretty amazing. 4 years in a row to do that. I can't believe that. So we talked about going from the youth and that and looking up. I want to throw up another picture here because I showed Nymar, and then of course going into high school. I know the varsity games were played here at John Glass. I know I remember playing in that field house both at high school level and also college level, getting my butt handed to me by the Beavers. But I had good memories there. And can you talk about your memories playing in that? You mentioned something to me off air about this picture here, about up top that actually. Tell me a little bit about that. You were mentioning when George played, big George Palawa back in the day, who may he rest in peace.
Yeah, well, what was interesting about that picture when you showed it to me, what just popped into my mind right away was in the mid '80s, my dad was coaching the high school team along with Brian Grant, and so I was a young kid, 10 years old, 11 years old, and where you see the banners and the BSU sign and the Beaver logo, it used to be a mezzanine area that they kept closed, but you could open the doors up and you could overlook the hockey rink, and Bemidji had such a strong team in the mid '80s, and George Palawa obviously was the person everybody loved to watch. He was 6'4", 240 pounds, just like a God-given body, a tremendous hard-working blue-collar family. And George, he just steamrolled people. He just ran. He had to be crazy intimidating to play against because he just was such a large man, and he had a mean streak. Like, he wasn't this gentle giant. George loved to run people over, and he wasn't the only one on that team either. They had some really big guys. It was
trust me, I remember. Unfortunately, I remember it all too well, Andy, because I was between the pipes in quite a few battles.
As physically dominating of a high school hockey team as you could have, and they were all like really blue collar kids. They just were kind of just tough kids, Georgia's senior year in 1986, they lost to Hibbing 4-3 in the quarterfinal game, and they had beat Hibbing pretty handedly during the year. A little bit of an upset, but as we all know, watching high school hockey, you get down to one game elimination games, and anything can happen. And it surely didn't diminish what that team meant to Bemidji, just because those guys, even to this day, the 1985, 1986 high school hockey guys are kind of folk heroes in Bemidji.
Yeah, and I tell you what, they still took home some hardware there. I think they were consolation champions in '86, if I remember right. So, and I don't want to go up top, but you mentioned George. I've got to tell a story, and this will when you talk about us hitting, Andy, and I know this is about you, but we were playing a game in the old Memorial Building right there, and there was a player on our team, Dion Gunderson was his name. And I'll preface it with this: at the time, John Helgeson, Pete Helgeson, the Helgesons, their fathers were the funeral directors in town.
Yeah.
So, okay, just preface that. Well, there was how you get the blind passes, right? Well, he got a blind pass in front of our bench, and George, I swear he killed him. I mean, he was out. Clean hit. I mean, he just rocked him. And they took him off, carted him off, and and obviously in the stretcher, and put him on the training table in the locker room, and he's waking up, shaking his head, and perching down on him are Mr. and Mr. Helgeson, he opens his eyes, and I'll paraphrase it. He goes, "Oh my God, am I dead?" I tell that story. I told that story to the Calgary guy. Calgary was, his 25th anniversary when being drafted, and just amazing guy. So it was a sad deal. He was a good friend. A lot of memories there, but we can go on about that. So anyway, moving on right along.
In Bemidji, people still haven't got over it. I mean, it's just, as many years ago as it was now, I don't think any of us have really got over the fact that, just that George got taken from us at such a young age when he had such a bright future in hockey. And I don't know. It almost maybe makes the mythology of George Palawa even bigger.
I think you're right on that. It is. It's a sad story, and may he rest in peace. And I miss the guy because I think consider him a friend and played
Yeah.
ball
And,
against him.
and like I said, I was a young kid. I was 12 years old in
Yeah.
1986, but I was always hanging around the hockey team since my dad was a coach, and George was, he was like Paul Bunyan. He was one of those guys you always wanted to hang around. It was like being around Elvis Presley.
That's a good analogy. Elvis, the king. So he had some, in terms of playing high school hockey, that experience that moving along from high school, he ended up going. I got to pull up this picture here. By golly, where is it? Because where I showed it to you earlier. Aha. Playing
Yeah.
there for the University of Minnesota. We talked about what that card's got to be worth, a couple $100 there, Andy, especially if you sign it. Well, you sign it, but no,
Yes.
going to the University of Minnesota, playing for another legendary coach in the likes of Doug Woog. So
Yeah.
can you talk about your years there? Because you played with some pretty dang good hockey players. And I look at the records, and Brian Bonham was there, Ryan Kraft coming in. Pretty amazing, players that you played with.
Yeah, we had great teams when I was there, and how I ended up there is just a bizarre story. I originally went down to Florida to play golf and was down there for a couple of weeks and just felt so out of place being a kid from northern Minnesota, and all of a sudden I'm living in southern Florida. And I came back to Minnesota after a couple of weeks, and I joined the golf team. The school year had already started. I knocked on Doug Woog's door one day just because I'd been a good high school hockey player. I'd made the USA Select 16 team, the USA Select 17 team. I had always done really well within my birth year with USA Hockey. And I just knocked on his door one day and introduced myself to him and just said, I'm here on the golf team at Minnesota. I just came back from Florida and I'd love to go out and skate. I hadn't skated in over 7 months. I hadn't skated since the old maroon and gold game.
Oh, wow.
So I was like mid-March, and I had to drive back to Bemidji and get all my hockey gear that was at my parents' house. And I started skating with the Gophers, and they got a few injuries. And next thing you know, I'm in the lineup, and the rest is history. And got to play my freshman year in the old Mariucci, and then my sophomore year we transitioned to the new rink that's there now. And but it was growing up in northern Minnesota, to be quite honest, I was always a Fighting Sioux fan, and all of the guys I looked up to were Fighting Sioux players, and actually Duluth players like Brett Hull, and then from Bemidji, Jimmy Toninato was my favorite player as a young kid growing up. And so I really never followed the U, quite honestly, all that closely. The only guys I really had ever seen play there were Paul Broughton, who I loved watching him play. I watched him play a lot of high school hockey when I was younger. And he was always Roseau's best player. So I always rooted so hard against him. I always wanted to see Paul, especially in high school, play terrible because they're playing against Bemidji, and I always wanted Bemidji to win, but he usually didn't. He usually played great, and Roseau usually won. I just didn't follow the U that much. But once I got there, I just bled maroon and gold and absolutely loved my 4 years there, and got to play with Brian Bonham, who won the Hobie Baker Award. And he just absolutely dominated his senior year. And we had really good teams. We went to the Final Four my sophomore and junior years, but we just ran into a really great Boston University team that, they probably ended up with 8-9 guys that played in the National Hockey League from those teams. And we gave it our best against them. We just couldn't seem to beat them.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Some just bumping the team at the wrong time.
Yeah.
But when when you played there, I'd be remiss if I didn't pull him up, because we talked about him a little up here and talked about other coaches, but this guy, I mean, what can you tell me about playing for Mr. Woog? I mean, every time I met him, he was always so cordial, just a great guy. So what were your experiences playing for him?
Yeah, Doug was, I would probably say he's about the nicest man you could ever meet. He just was a very nice person. And especially being with him and socializing with him outside of like a hockey setting, he was a happy person. He was a school teacher from South St. Paul, obviously was a great player back in his day and loved hockey and loved the University of Minnesota. I say this all the time. Nobody loves their coach when you play for them. That's just kind of how it is. Like, cause and coaches are supposed to push you, and they're supposed to try to get you to another level. So you don't sometimes appreciate your coaches until a few years after you've had them. And obviously when I look back on my relationship with Doug, it's just a really high quality person that was a caring person that wanted to share his passion with hockey, and he always made himself available. I think he was a person that really did his best to promote hockey, promote youth hockey, to get more kids playing, and just to enjoy the game, enjoy being at a hockey rink, and he certainly did.
You know, you mentioned that about Doug, and I kind of liken it to one coach I had as a peewee. You know, I didn't like him. He's tough as nails. Of course, Dickie Johnson.
Oh yeah,
a legend. But you know what? I would go through a wall for that guy because he cared for his players. He wanted the best out of them. But
well,
after hockey, it's like he's the guy I think about. Go ahead.
Dickie Johnson was the best. I remember him well from playing in Bemidji, playing peewees. I was scared of him, and he was the Roseau coach, but he barked so hard at those Roseau kids, and would, every now and then grab maybe a kid by the mask or something. And you talk to any Roseau guy that played for Dick, and they loved him. They just can't say enough great things about him. And then I was coaching my older son Bobby in peewees at Chaska when we lived there, and we went up and won the Dick Johnson. And I thought that was pretty special, just because Dick, even though I was from Bemidji, I admired him and I liked him. And I actually talked to him on the phone quite a few times when I started coaching youth hockey. And I remember one time I was bringing my Chaska team up to play in the Roseau Pee Wee tournament. And I was talking to Dick on the phone, and he said, "Hey, I got to get off the phone. Open hockey's about to start, and I like to run up to the rink and watch the kids play." And so he got off the phone, and you could just, as an older gentleman, he still loved going up and watching the kids skate.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. That's what it's all about, leaving a legacy. And that's the legacy he left. Is that loved hockey. Loved hockey. Yep. That's why I do these too. I love hockey. I love talking hockey. So So I got to bring up now, after we talked about Woog a little bit, and of course bringing up Dick. I got to throw up these pictures here because you had the opportunity, and we'll discuss a little bit more there too, that your son also did, and that was this here, World Juniors.
Yeah,
World Juniors. Look at how young you are.
Yeah,
the action shot too. There's the action shot for you too. So it looks like you're playing it.
But I wish I could still bend my knees like that. That was a great time, and I always had a lot of fortune within my birth year with USA Hockey. I made all the USA teams I could make growing up, and then making the World Junior team was a huge honor, and I was just thrilled to play. And then my coach over there was Dean Blais. Dean was my coach, and loved having Dean, and he was coaching Roseau my sophomore year, so competed against him in high school. But it was to me, it was kind of an honor to play for Dean, and I really respected him, and he was a great team coach or players coach. But that was a great tournament. We went over to the Czech Republic. We played in Ostrava, and Frýdek, Mystic were the towns we played in, and amazing tournament. Canada had an unbelievable team. We competed as hard as we could against them. We just couldn't beat them, but it's something that you never forget.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the roster. I mean, the scoring in that tournament, some of the names that played in that tournament. And on your team, as a matter of fact, too, there's some guys that had a nice little career in the NHL, like the likes of I see Richard Park played there. He was on your team. Kevin Adams. Also, I see Langenbrunner, Jamie Langenbrunner, and Adam Deadmarsh, and then of course Peter Carmanis' son. He didn't have a lot of career in playing, but he's involved with hockey as far as a GM and assistant GM. But one name I got to throw out here, and I'll throw this up too, that to me is very unique, and I don't think we'll ever see that from Roseau or Bemidji, whoever, is the ability to play with another fellow Bemidji Lumberjack, and that was, let's see this picture. What do I got of this young man? I got so many pictures here. Was Toby Kabalabog.
Yeah.
A goalie. I mean, the goalie union. I mean, now that's got to be pretty cool when you can say, hey, we both played in the same tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing that two kids from Bemidji, that small northern Minnesota town, that make the World Junior team, and Toby was playing at North Dakota at the time, and I was playing at Minnesota. But it was pretty fun to share that with him and with his family, and I had been very close with his older brother, Shane, who I played a lot of hockey with. And then Toby was a year younger than I was, but their family as well, essentially grew up with them, going to hockey rinks and going on hockey trips. And it's a tremendous family. And Toby was a heck of an athlete. He would skate out in Bemidji times where he didn't want to jump in the net, and he would be our third or fourth best player skating out. I mean, he just was a really good athlete. And certainly made me a better hockey player having to shoot on them in practice and try to beat them. You usually had to do something pretty special to beat them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I understand, from what I hear, he's quite the fisherman too. He's making a living being a professional fisherman. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe him and Dustin Buffett should be getting together, as in maybe they should be partnering up on some fishing show or something.
I'm sure they have. I know Toby's acquired quite the reputation as a great fishing guide, and I certainly could use some tips on how to fish a little bit better.
You and me both. I just go to the local, the grocery store and buy mine off the out
It's
of the
cheaper that
freezer.
way too.
Well, those fish sticks are pretty easy, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just had to throw that out there, playing in that squad and just the experience. And then after that, you obviously finished up your career there at the Gophers. Nice little career playing with some, Division One hockey. It's pretty amazing. And did you say were you golfing too? Did they have the golf team at the same time? Were you golfing as well,
Yeah,
or was
So I played both golf and hockey at the University of
wow?
Minnesota when I was there, and then the golf season and the hockey season, they sound like they align, but a lot of times they don't. The golf season actually begins during the middle of the winter, and oftentimes we were playing into mid-April with those teams that made runs through the NCAA tournament. So. And then after college, I actually turned pro in golf. I won the Minnesota State Open my senior year in college that summer. And so I turned pro the next year, and my wife and I moved to California, and I spent 3 years just slugging it out all over the U.S., just playing on these different mini tours is what we called them back in those days. And
Yep.
had a gentleman out of New York City who used to run Bear Stearns. He was the CEO of Bear Stearns that would give me money to play, and so I could afford to do it. And there was many times that we slept in our minivan, and we didn't have enough money to buy anything. When my wife and I finally got an apartment in Palm Desert, California, for me to stay out there and play, we slept on the floor just because we didn't want to spend money on a mattress, which sounds ridiculous now. But I slugged it out for 3 years, but just was not good enough to keep investing time and energy. And thankfully, my wife said, why don't we actually try to move on with our life and maybe have a family and all that stuff. So she probably saved me from many years of 3 putts.
3 putts. Well, it's interesting, Andy, because you're talking about the golf. A lot of guys that go on and try to chase their dream playing hockey. They're playing in the coast. They're playing in the lower level for the love of the game, chasing that dream to someday make it. And you had that with golf, and it's just living on a shoestring budget, trying to chase that dream, because I know those guys in the lower level don't make a lot of money playing,
Yeah.
in the minors. Some on the lower level it is. If you're in the A, you're making some money. But
Yeah. Yeah.
good to know. 'Cause I did not know that about you. That's very unique, and I'm glad you shared that about your experiences living in an
Well,
apartment on the floor, basically on the floor, trying to make it.
Well, I'll tell you what, like growing up in Bemidji, I had a tremendous influence in both golf and hockey, and his name was Billy Iselson. And Billy was on the Bemidji's state high school hockey team that lost to Edina East in the 1974 state finals. But besides being a really good player, Billy was the best golfer in the state. He won the state amateur 3 straight years as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and 20-year-old in the state of Minnesota. And he played down at Lamar in Texas. And then he played on the PGA Tour. And his backyard and my backyard in Bemidji, even though he's 18 years older than me, they intersect. And so when he was on the PGA Tour and I was a young kid, I'd wake up 6 a.m. and walk through my backyard and walk into Billy's house. I wouldn't even knock. I just open the door and walk in their house, and it'd be 6 a.m. and I'd walk down in the basement where he slept and wake him up, and he'd take me out to the golf course. And there was probably another 4 to 5 juniors that would be out there at 6:20 in the morning, and Billy would play with us. And so we'd have a sixsome going down the fairway. And of course, he's on tour. He'd go out and shoot 64, 63, 62. I mean, he just was crazy what he could do. Even he's 68 years old now, and he just this year in the state senior open, he shot 68 as a 60-year-old and took second. So he can still really play. Anyways, but that was kind of my influence, and that's who I looked up to. And so I wanted to be on the PGA Tour, and I wanted to be a golfer. And like I said, I gave it, what was my best at the time, but just wasn't quite good enough to keep playing.
Yeah, but not too many people can say they gave it a try. I mean, that's a hell of a story there, Andy. I didn't know that, so I'm glad you shared that about the golfing side of the business, because we're talking hockey, but obviously there's a lot of other mentors and things that really shaped your life from the sounds of it. So after that was all said and done, you were done chasing the little white ball and the dream with the golf sticks, not the hockey sticks, but the golf sticks. you moved on to look like this here. There's the director of
Yeah.
this place right here. So can you talk about how that all happened and came about? I mean, you and another former golfer from NHLer, Dave Snuggerud,
Yeah.
both, involved with that. You're now the director of admissions and also director of athletics. But before I jump into that, I should say you did do a little bit of this. You talked about coaching Pee-wees and that. I got to throw up that picture there because you were in Minnetonka, playing
Yeah.
coaching
And,
there.
and, and and before you take that picture down, so the
Yes.
kid next to me with a stocking tip on, that's my middle son, Joey. He's 22 years
Okay.
old.
Okay,
And
good.
so we've coached together the last few years, and we've won the state championship the last 2 years at the PBAA level. And then the gentleman to his left or to right on the picture, we're in the bulk, the stocking cap as well. He played at Duluth and Shattuck. His name was Michael Gergen. And then the guy at the end, that's Mike Crawley. And
Oh, okay.
Mike's boy Carter was just an unbelievable player for us on the team this year. And Mike helped us coach and was an excellent hockey coach. And yeah, we've had a nice run in Minnetonka. We've had a lot of great players and a lot of great resources for the kids and good coaches. And then of course it's been pretty fun for me to share it with my middle son.
Nice run. So, hey, before I jump into the breakaway, I kind of went off track here, and I apologize. But we're talking about the youth hockey. We talked about the World Juniors, and I forgot to do this. Can you talk about your son because you had a story that was pretty amazing when you talked about the World Juniors and his path and that. And can you bring that up, and I'll pull it back down here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Bob, plays for the Philadelphia Flyers, and that's my oldest son. And he was fortunate. He got to play on the World Junior team twice. But the first time he played on it was in the same place I played 25 years later over in the Ostrava, Czech Republic. And my wife and I went over for the tournament, and it's not terribly easy to get to Eastern Czech Republic. And you got to fly to Amsterdam, then you fly into Prague, and then you have to rent a car. And it was probably the first time I had driven a stick shift in quite some time. But they still have those over there. And but it was really fun to watch him play in that tournament. And then the next year they played up in Edmonton in the bubble, and they won the gold medal that year, beating Canada in the championship game. So we couldn't go to that tournament. So I'm happy that we went that first time that he made it.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I apologize. I forgot to talk about that when we were talking about World Juniors because that's amazing. 25 years later, your
Yeah.
son, and that you see a lot of the first generation, second generation, third generation. And I look at your former Gopher squad and some of the players on there. You see, then you mentioned Mike Crawley. A lot of these guys, this to keep going on. It's
Yeah.
hockey is a thing where
Yeah.
generation, passed on, passed on,
Yeah.
passed on,
Well,
and
it
that's
gets in your blood, and it's like, and that's where for me now, especially as you get older, you appreciate it so much more. Again, when you're young and you're competing, you hate Roseau, you hate War Road, you hate Thief River Falls, you hate Duluth East. As you get older and a little wiser, you start to appreciate all those great people that you meet from different areas. And so it actually becomes pretty fun to interact with them and, again, go down memory lane a little bit and talk about the old times and some great things. And, for me, speaking of Roseau, I see Billy and Greg Lund, not as much as I'd like, but quite a bit. And they're two of my favorite people in the world. And not only did we have some great contests against each other, but we got to share some pretty fun moments in the rink too. And that's what it's kind of all about. As you get older, you realize that hockey guys are pretty good guys, pretty fun to be around.
I mean, I may not played at the high level that I would like to, and some of my, people like yourself and people I've interviewed and talked to, but I tell you what, I made some great memories and some, great relationships to this day
Yeah.
that I still have. I'm picking up the phone and call, like I call Roscoe and talk to him, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's why it's great to go to the state tournament. You bump into people that you haven't seen in years because
Yeah.
it's like a destination, the state hockey tournament.
Yep.
Um,
Pretty small world out there in the hockey world.
it is, and it's, we're very tight knit, and that's the thing about hockey. So I like I said, I kind of went back on that to talk about Bobby a little bit, but it also comes into play about talking about what you're doing now with Breakaway because he was involved there. So can you talk about how that all happened, how that, how you got together with Dave and your other partner there, and this came about because it's really amazing what's going on, what you're doing, and what the state of hockey is in terms of so much training and schooling and things compared to when I was young.
Yeah. Well, hockey's obviously, like most sports has changed tremendously and some of it, for the better and some of it not for, the betterment of the game. But,
Agreed.
with Breakaway Academy, it's, the way it ended up getting started is Dave and I, Dave was a coaching or teaching in Wayzata schools and was a middle school teacher up there. And I was subbing in the Chaska School District and working towards getting my teaching license. And that was a profession I was going to go into. And Dave and I were both running hockey camps together and hockey training. Just it's what our passion and our knowledge base was. And we both lived in Chaska. And Dave was a high school hockey coach in Chaska, and I was coaching youth hockey and running summer camps and training opportunities. And, you know, we had young kids coming up, and our kids, we just thought, you know what, we can do something unique here where kids can still go to school and get a great education and be in front of teachers and be held accountable. But at the same time, we can maybe carve out a little bit of the day and let them do something that they're really passionate about, and that was hockey. And so the kids would go to their core classes every day, math and science and social studies and language arts, and we do a 5th class called academic skills. And we also put a real heavy emphasis on character building. So kids have to act the right way, and we want to teach them how to respond to adversity and have a work ethic and how you treat other people and how you're supposed to act when you go back home to mom and dad, and your responsibilities within your community to be a good person. That's just all stuff that we learned kind of organically growing up in small towns. But we wanted kids to learn that it's really important to be that way. So that's part of what our school is. And then the kids get to skate for an hour every day. And then they also get to play an hour of sports where we just play sports. We play pickleball and dodgeball and spike ball games. And because we want our kids just to be athletes and just have fun and compete. And so we wanted to make school fun, and we thought we could do that without compromising their educational experience, and if anything, enhance the educational experience. And that's what we've done. So if I ever have a student that isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing academically or socially, we pull the hockey and the sports training away from them as a consequence. They don't get to go participate in it. And so if you're a kid that really loves hockey, you're obviously going to toe the line because you're excited to go to the rink and you want to go skate and do the fun stuff on the ice. So we're entering our 13th year, and we've been pretty fortunate. We've had 86 kids now get Division I hockey scholarships, and we have 7 kids playing in the NHL. And every year we have put kids on the national development team. And I think this year we had 6 kids that went through the NHL draft, and we just had several girls on the USA U18 team. And that isn't the reason that we're doing it. It's just a byproduct of the environment. It's just they're just getting a chance to get on the rink and train and practice more and do it in a fun environment. And that's something we've always taught kids and families, is that hockey's a sport. It's supposed to be really fun. This isn't a job. This isn't your identity. This is something that you get to do, and you should be pretty thankful that you get to do it. But you have to have balance. You can't just be it just can't be hockey or bust. That's a terrible way to live.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And just to throw some of the names out there, just looking at some of the roster of people that moved on. I mentioned, we talked about Bobby now being with the Flyers, your son, Bobby Brink, but some of the other names that just come out there. I see Jackson Blake went through your program, Jackson Lacombe, and of course, Jimmy Snuggerud, the Middlesteds also through there.
Yeah.
Just and Rem Pitlick, Sammy Rinzo, obviously I went to school with Sam's dad, Pete.
Yeah.
Just to name a few names, but it's just amazing that, the people that came through. And for those who don't know about the academy, it's what grade level? Because it's not an academy where you're going up to the high school. You go to your own high school. So can you talk about that? How that age?
Yeah.
Where you cut the line? Where do you draw the line?
Well, that's something that we're actually really proud of, is that we run this school, but we don't have teams at our school. You just go back and play for your home community. So we're a K through 8 school. And if you're from Edina, you're going to go right back home and play after the school day's over for your Edina youth team or your baseball team or tennis or whatever you're doing. If you're from Wayzata or wherever you're from, you just go home at the end of the day. And then after 8th grade, our kids go just wherever the right fit is. Maybe it's their public high school. Like my boys went back to Minnetonka, where we live. Jimmy Snuggerud went back to Chaska High School, where he lives. We get kids that go on to Shattuck St. Mary's or prep schools or private schools. We don't care where they go. We just want to help them find what's going to be their next right fit for them from a educational and from a social and athletic standpoint. So we're kind of like Switzerland, where kids come from all over the metro area in the Twin Cities to attend our school. And then right at the end of the school day, they're just going to go back to their home community and hopefully be a great kid within their community. And so we love the fact that we support community-based hockey and high school hockey.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because you see more and more of these academies and prep schools and training and that. And um, I want to kind of discuss that too, Andy, because we talked about the good and the bad. And to me, there's a lot what I call nowadays. I'll tell you like tell it like it is. It's checkbook hockey. The kids are playing year round. They're playing AAA and all that. Um, but in your case, it's like you're giving him that one-on-one. You give him the education aspect of it, and it's not just hockey. I see you also have, my understanding, you got soccer now you're doing
Yeah.
with, and also a golf. Well, which makes sense. You should have junior golf there. I see because of yourself, the
Yeah.
background. If you didn't, I'd be disappointed in you. But the whole thing, as far as training and you know the aspect that it is hockey has changed. It's gotten to be expensive.
Yeah.
It is. It is. So that's the one, the bad side of the sport I see, unfortunately, and that's what I started, doing my hockey sticks because I just seen outrageous. But can you tell me a little bit about, your thoughts on how it has changed for the better? Obviously, there's a lot better athletes, things
Yeah.
faster, quicker game. Um, it's a lot different for the good, and then there's also still that aspect that it's gotten to be hockey isn't for everyone, in my opinion. They say that it's true, it is for everyone, but it isn't because of financial aspect. Can
Yeah.
you just discuss
Well,
that? I know when I was a kid, I wouldn't be able to do this stuff now that they do now.
yeah. And I live obviously in the Twin Cities, and life in the Twin Cities is different from Bemidji and different from Roseau and some of the other small towns that I've been able to spend some time in Minnesota. There's different levels of hockey. Some kids are really playing from a social standpoint, and they just want to have fun with hockey, which is tremendous. It's great, and so there's some summer opportunities for them to play on teams or camps, and really the goal is to get active and get out of the house and not be sitting around your house all day, and let's get on the ice and let's play some sports. And so there's some positives there. I mean, the expensive hockey is, I mean, it's like anything in life. It's expenses have gone through the roof, and hockey's no different. And it'd be great if somebody could wave a magic wand and make it more affordable for everybody. But I don't know how that's going to happen. It's this. I was a parent with 3 young boys, and we had to budget pretty tightly, and we had to make decisions about what was important to us as a family, and what are we going to invest in, and what are things that we have to say no to because we couldn't afford it. And so I think every young family with young kids is kind of in that position. And I think the one great thing though is like you see a lot of people they invest in hockey because their kids have a great experience with it, and they're typically around good people, and they're around other kids, and they're learning the value of competitiveness and competition and teamwork and sportsmanship. And they surely could be putting their time and energy and money into much worse places than hockey. I think I'll tell you, and I don't think my experience is unique. 99% of the kids and families I meet in hockey are just great people. They have perspective, and they want their kids to be happy, and they want their kids to be healthy, and they want their kids to be a part of a community and give their best. And I think sometimes maybe that one person out of 100 gives everybody a bad name, but the reality is that, I mean, 99% of the people I'm meeting are just off the charts great people.
I couldn't agree with you more. That is true. There's always that 1%, that's in the population in life, but the 99% is
Yeah.
that's hockey people,
Yep. It's
people in
just the
general.
1% gets the headlines.
Yeah, it's always the case. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just
Yeah.
like bad press, right?
Yep.
In sales, I've been in sales all my life. When I was in sales, you hear about the bad things, but what about the 99 times it was good?
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity. So, um, I'm kind of trying to keep it within an hour here, Andy. We're 45-minute mark. But I was going to ask you in terms of things that we missed, or things that in terms of just in general in your experiences through the hockey world, through the golf world, that you maybe want to touch upon that I didn't bring up with you. That you can prove the
Well,
point.
I don't know. Like I'm 51 now, and I still love to golf, and I try my best to golf as well as I can. And I don't play or practice the way anywhere near as much as I used to. But I just think that's why, to me, sports is just such a great environment for kids. If you can keep your kids involved in sports, and I don't care if they're a AA level player or a C level player, keep them playing and around other kids. And whether it's hockey or soccer or tennis or golf or whatever the sport is, baseball, I think that just and I see it now in the business world with a lot of the kids that have gone to my school, or just kids that I've known through hockey that are now, 23, 24, 25. What an advantage they have trying to get a job in the business world, where you have to really compete, or you got to sell, or you have to put in extra hours, or you have to be a great teammate for a project. And a lot of the people I know that run small businesses, they want to hire athletes because they know that they've had to compete and they know they've had to deal with some adversity and probably had to take some hard coaching sometimes from a coach and respond to it. And so that's why, I don't know, I'm just such a huge fan of sports. And I think as long as a kid can keep playing it, it just is, it's to their benefit.
Okay, well, that's very true. I can appreciate where you're coming from. As far as the academy is concerned, you have 2 locations here in the metro area, and I noticed you have one out east too. Was that Norwalk? How did that come about? How you got you expanded out east? Where'd
Yeah,
that come from?
that's a crazy story. There was a gentleman out there that kept pinging me for years saying, you got to come start a school out here. And I didn't have the infrastructure or the confidence that we could run a school that was 1,000 miles away from us. But eventually he convinced me to come out there, and I was up deer hunting a couple of years ago, just south of Baudette, which is where I go deer hunting every year. And I had to cut my trip short, which I wasn't happy about, to go check out this area in Norwalk, Connecticut, but flew out there um, and was pleasantly surprised. They had a tremendous building that they could do academic space in, 2 hockey sheets, a great workout area, great area to play sports. Was in a beautiful area. I spend very little time in the Northeast, but that was really fun to go out there and to see that. And then a gentleman named Gary Zegras, whose boy Trevor is a great player in the NHL, and just got traded to the Flyers here, so he'll be playing with Bobby this year. Gary runs that campus, and he runs a big hockey program out there called Mid Fairfield, which has been a very successful kind of tier 1 program in the East Coast. And Gary runs that campus, and I can see where Trevor got his competitiveness and got his work ethics. His dad's that way, and we're just entering year 2 of that campus now. This will be our second year. When we started Breakaway Academy 13 years ago, we had 21 kids when we started our school. So it was pretty small, and now we're up to probably, close to 500. They've started small, but they're doing it the right way, and it's been a great educational environment and great sports environment. And so I know they're going to grow out there too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just going to ask you about, in terms of how many athletes, student athletes, I stressed the word student first. You have, and said 500 amongst, is that the 2 campuses? Do you have a cap? Is there a cap on that? I mean, where do you max it out? Is there a certain amount of students that say, you can't have any more? Or do you plan on expanding in the metro area? Let me ask you that.
No, we have our 2 locations. We have a K-3 campus in Chaska. We have a 4-8 campus in Eden Prairie. And we're not looking to do other locations. We're not trying to become a huge school. What we're more focused on is just be the best we can be, whether it's in the classroom or with the athletic training or the hockey training specifically or the soccer training specifically. So we're not trying to become IMG here and become the biggest. We just want to be the best. And I feel like, I'll tell you what, I feel great about what we've done for 12 years. We've had 12 years of families that have been really happy their child has gone to Breakaway Academy. And it's not just the hockey success that kids are having either. It's just they're just becoming good kids, and they're able to work hard, and they're able to chart their own course and not have excuses. And that's what we want to create in kids. Just again, just some hard-nosed kids that are going to go out and chart their own course and learn to be a good person and be able to build relationships. And again, they're young kids. They screw up. They're supposed to. That's how you learn, is you make mistakes and you go through stuff. We're surely not trying to be perfect little angels, but we just have a really supportive adults around the kids that are there to give them direction and give them focus and to encourage them each day. So it's as much as I've loved my life in sports and the hockey and golf I got to play and the great people, I'm probably most proud of Breakaway Academy.
Well, that's awesome. I was just going to say, can they put your email address up there, Andy, for people to contact you at the academy?
Sure. Yep.
I mean, I'm just going to actually make a note of that here because I want that. Make sure I got that Breakaway. But hopefully, I did my. There we go.
Yep.
Andy.Brink at breakawayacademy.net. It's Andy.Brink at breakawayacademy.net for more information on that. So, and I'm going to wind it down here, but I do want to ask you if you just touch upon Bobby a little bit. I mean, I can't. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Flyer hockey, the NHL, where their direction is going, because your son's there now, and you mentioned Zegras. I mean, I'm excited. I just like hockey in general. I mean, I'm a Habs fan. I grew up watching the Habs, but I want to see teams successful that need to be successful. It's like in Minnesota, you want to have Roseau successful. You want to
Yeah.
have, the Warroads, the Bemidjis to be successful for the better of hockey, high school hockey. And same with the NHL. I want to see the Buffalo Sabres be good again. I want to see the Flyers be good again. Can we talk a little bit about that? Your thoughts on where their direction is going, what you think about them?
Well, I think they're close. It's, first of all, it's the best league in the world. So every time you're playing somebody, you're playing a pretty unbelievable lineup, and you're playing against an organization that's doing their absolute best to win. So, it's the toughest league in the world for a reason. I love watching the NHL, and now I have more and more kids from my school and just that I've known through youth hockey and have been involved in some of their training are there. So you're such a fan of any of the guys in the league because it's so hard to get there. You just, as a sports person, you kind of almost root for everybody. Of course, I root harder for the Flyers than I do any other team, with Bobby being there, and Shirley, my wife, and I are always very excited to watch them play, whether it's on TV or the chances that we get to go see him in person. And and it's been very fun watching his ascension through hockey, because if there's anybody that's probably a great story for young kids, Bob's one of them, because he didn't make it to national camp the first year he was eligible. The second year where he finally did make it, he didn't even make the All-Star game. And then he got left out. He didn't get invited to the 40-man for the national development, the tryout, and the All-American Prospects game, which was open to the top 40 American draft eligibles. He didn't get invited to that. He's been left off of a lot of rosters, and maybe rightly so. But what I've always liked about him, and he hasn't had it easy in Philly either with John Tortorella as his coach. But what I've always liked about Bob, and I think it's a trait that any kid could copy, it's just he has never been a woe is me kind of kid. He's never pointed the finger. He's always just taken whatever the result was and said, what can I do about this? And what's my responsibility here? And how can I react to it? And so, yeah, that's my kid I'm talking about. And I probably sound like a dad, but he's been a great example of just, when things don't go your way, what are you going to do about it? And I think he's done that. And of course, he's had some great successes at, Minnetonka. They won a Bantam AA state. And then his sophomore year, they won the state tournament, and then going to Denver and winning a national title there and being up for the Hobie. I mean, he's had a lot of things go well for him. But if you're in sports long enough, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to have some good things and you're going to have some hard things too.
Yeah, I think that that the one word that comes to mind is perseverance. Because you're going to have, you said, up and ground. You got to take no quit attitude, no quit, never give up attitude. If you really want to have a goal, you got to have goals. And I think that's what you're telling me. That's a good example in your son for a lot of people out there to learn from.
And you got to have a work ethic. Like, you just got to have a work ethic. And that's something I'm constantly telling kids and families. That I'll have a kid say to me, geez, I want to make my varsity team as a sophomore. And it's like, you can do it. That's such an awesome goal. Like, good for you. But you're going to have to outwork a lot of people. And if you want it, it doesn't always feel like work. A lot of times it's fun. It's fun to put in that kind of time and then to get good and then go earn something. So it's like anything in life. You want to run a business, or you want to be a great salesman, or whatever it is you're doing, you got to have a work ethic.
Absolutely. So that, I guess we're talking about, all kind of lends me to this next part, the ending of how I kind of end things is, if I was a young athlete, whether it be for hockey, golf, baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter, Andy. If I'm just a young athlete and I come up to you and said, Mr. Brink, what advice could you give me just to be, first of all, a better athlete, better person? Just what advice would you give someone if they came up to you? Or a parent too. It's good for that matter, but let's talk about both sides.
Well, I think from a kid's standpoint, like, the one thing you're trying to teach kids is, like, the only limitations that you have is really in your mind. That's other people are maybe going to judge you and leave you off rosters, but really your only limitations you have are mental. It's just how you perceive yourself and how you think of yourself. So I think that's encouraging for kids to know they can pretty much be anything they want, but they have to be able to visualize it and see it and believe it and then go work for it. For parents, I'm around hockey parents nonstop, and I'm constantly giving them this advice. What you're always telling your kid is just be the hardest worker they can be, compete to win, be the best teammate you can be, and just do whatever your team asks you. And that's how you evaluate your child. You don't evaluate them based on goals and assists and did they lead the tournament in scoring. And are they getting notoriety? You always get parents to focus on the actual things you can control, and what you can control is always attitude and effort and teamwork and sportsmanship and compete. And then you can always turn to your kid after they get beat 6-1 and say, well, if you gave your best, that's all that matters. So to me, parents play a huge role in it, and every parent is very well intentioned, and they love their child so much they want to help them any way they can. Just unfortunately, sometimes they kind of put unrealistic expectations on them to score more, to get more points, or to stick handle through 3 people. Well, that's not the answer. Passing the puck to the open kid's the answer. So you're trying to get parents to play the long game and take some of the pressure off, and not get them to enjoy the sports without anxiety. Like, enjoy watching your kid play and judge them based on their effort and their competitiveness and their teamwork and their sportsmanship. And if your kid's doing that, they're going to have a pretty great experience with sports.
Awesome. And I think they're going to be a pretty good person in life, because isn't that
Yeah.
the goal about any coach? Is not
Yep.
just what we do in wins and losses. It's getting them to be a good person after
No
playing
question.
sports.
Yep.
So, well, Andy, that's I'm going to kind of wind it down, but that's kind of how I end it with. And very, very good, wise advice from a very good coach himself there at Breakaway Academy. And I appreciate you taking a few minutes to sit down with me here. It's all about talking stories, talking hockey and experiences. And your story is quite the story to tell, intermingling golf and hockey, and creating the academy, and your son going on to play in the NHL. And it's quite an experience. And I appreciate the time you gave me today. And I thank you immensely for doing this for me.
Oh, thank you, Sid. And I appreciate you being a Roseau boy, not bringing up all the times Roseau used to kick my butt.
Well, let me say that I was in that era with George, so I was on the other end quite a bit, getting my butt kicked, we'll
Yeah.
say. So
Well,
they evened it out in my era there.
yeah. Well, I had to take it on the other side. So but it was really fun. I enjoyed talking to you, Sid, and we could probably have done this for hours, because I have just the people that I met in northern Minnesota through hockey and golf, and so many of them are from Roseau, of course. Just really great experiences and great people, and it's really great adults that I think shaped a lot of lives of younger kids. As an adult, you sometimes don't always realize how impactful you're being on younger kids, but I know the adults that I grew up with were pretty instrumental in my upbringing.
Well, I agree with you. Great memories and great mentors out there. So again, Andy Brink, the director of missions and athletics there, former at the Breakaway Academy and former Bemidji Lumberjack. I thank you for your time today, Andy. Have a great
All right.
day.
Thank you, Sid. You too.
You bet.